My guest at this time is Tom Shakely. He's the Chief Engagement Officer at Americans United for Life. We want to get his reaction to two major stories in the abortion debate. First, Georgia is now the latest state to enact legislation banning abortion once a fetal heartbeat is detected. We also want to discuss the story of Pennsylvania State Representative Brian Sims filming himself harassing pro-life activists outside a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic in Philadelphia. And Tom, thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. It's great to be here.
Well, let's start with the heartbeat bills. How many states now have passed this sort of legislation? It seems like you've got quite a string here.
Well, it's working its way up there. So, all told, I think it's likely that almost a third of the states in some form or another are looking at this or dealing with concrete law or draft law or some stage of it.
And why did Georgia get so much attention, particularly from those opposed to this legislation? You had Alyssa Milano and other celebrities really ratcheting up the intensity of the debate there. But we saw it in Ohio. We saw it recently in Alabama and other states around the country. As you said, close to a third of the states are at least discussing this. So why did Georgia become such a flashpoint?
Well, I think Georgia has been proud to advance this cause. They've been very vocal about it. As you noted, a number of states have been advancing this issue. But, whatever state is the latest state to stand up for human life and to work to put in place protective laws tends to be the one that gets hit the hardest by all those with a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. And unfortunately, that means that Georgia's taking a beating right now. By some in the mainstream media, some in the secular elite, but all told, this is a bill. It's an important bill, and it's one that's worth talking about.
The argument, of course, that you get from some on the pro-choice side is that, well, at the point that a heartbeat is detected, some women might not even know that they're pregnant, so they really never even have a chance to decide whether or not they want to keep the baby. What do you tell them?
Well, look, the simple fact is that this is about science and medicine, and the important thing is that, number one, we're recognizing that there is a heartbeat. This is a thing that's been a point of contention by some on the pro-choice side. I was at a Senate Judiciary hearing recently where there was testimony on the pain-capable bill that Senator Graham's considering, and, pro-choice Georgia Rep. Jordan spoke, and she made a reference to, what some call the quote-unquote so-called heartbeat. And so I think, this Georgia bill illustrates the divide that exists between folks who, on the one end, increasingly wanted to deny scientific and medical reality, and other folks who want to recognize it. At the end of the day, whatever the line that ends up being drawn is, we need to ensure that we have a law that protects all human life, but also supports mothers and all people who have to make the choice and to go through these situations. We need law that supports people in 100% of situations.
Tom, what is the official status in these states now that have adopted these laws? Is it still subordinate to the federal law and what the Supreme Court has to say, or are these bills in effect now and these laws are able to be prosecuted?
Yeah, the laws are important steps in the cause for life, but as you're alluding to, the Roe framework, the pro-abortion framework is still in place at the federal level. And so while heartbeat bills, the intent behind them is certainly good and important, and it draws attention to those scientific and medical realities, these laws have to this point, not saved a single human life. Because they are coming up against the sort of Roe abortion framework. However, every law like these that ends up being advanced is an important step forward to pushing the courts, both on the state levels, the district levels, and the federal level, pushing the judges that have to consider these cases to recognize, number one, what is the scientific and medical reality of these situations, and number two, what might be consistent with the state's ultimate interest in the protection of human life. So while these heartbeat bills are going against the current, framework that we have in place that does protect abortion in a fairly comprehensive sense, they are important for advancing the cause for life because they're forcing conversations that otherwise would not be having.
Let's turn to Pennsylvania now. And I mentioned State Representative Brian Sims. He's done this on more than one occasion, filmed himself confronting pro-life activists outside a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic in the southeastern part of Philadelphia. We've got a clip here where he is approaching an older senior citizen, I guess. She's out in front praying, and here is an excerpt from that.
Who would have thought that an old white lady would be out in front of a Planned Parenthood telling people what's right for their bodies? Shame on you. Shame on you for hiding your face at the same time that you're shaming other people. Again, the same laws that protect me protect you, and that's okay. You're allowed to be out here. That doesn't mean that you have a moral right to be out here. Shame on you. What you're doing here is disgusting. This is wrong. You have no business being out here.
And then another time he accosted 3 teenage girls.
So here's the deal. I've got $100 to anybody who will identify any of these 3.
So we're
I'm going to
actually
donate to Planned Parenthood. I'm going to donate to Planned Parenthood. So look, a bunch of white people standing out in front of a Planned Parenthood, shaming people. There's nothing Christian about what you're doing. Nothing Christian at all about what you're doing. Nothing Christian or loving or godly about what you're doing.
So, Tom, what do you make of that and the fact that he did it obviously intentionally and was quite proud of it?
Well, it's really incredible. I lived in Philadelphia for many years, and I actually have been outside of that precise Planned Parenthood clinic in Center City, Philadelphia. I've prayed out there. I've offered alternatives to women out there, along with many good people who've been out there, including women like the one that Representative Sims harasses in his own video that he live streamed. The simple fact is that people, Americans of goodwill, coming at these issues from all directions, personal experience, educational, religious, ethical, whatever, are coming at these issues from a place of genuine concern for women who are often not provided a real spectrum of choice. And, certainly Planned Parenthood is offering abortions at that facility. There's nothing wrong, and there's everything laudable about folks like the woman in that video, or like the 3, young folks that he accosted in another video, who are out there volunteering their time to offer alternatives to women, to offer housing, to offer, assistance with tuition, to offer all sorts of alternatives that are not offered at the Planned Parenthood, that are not offered elsewhere. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like Representative Sims even really understands his constituents. He didn't engage any of these folks to understand why they were out there, where they were coming from, whether they may have had abortions themselves, which could have led them to that place of offering alternatives. So it's just an unfortunate case of egregious political ideology trumping a human concern for neighbor. Representative Sims, certainly I think we can invite him to consider the more human approach of encountering his neighbors and encountering his constituents rather than condemning, unfortunately, in the way that he did.
Pro-life media and media that's largely sympathetic to the pro-life cause have obviously found this story and spent a lot of time on it, but there's not a lot of attention from the mainstream news on this. It's hard to say for sure, but I'm guessing that if some of these pro-life demonstrators had treated people trying to enter the clinic like this, it would probably make pretty big headlines. So what do you make of the media approach to this?
Well, yeah, there's no question that's right. It's an absurdity, for instance, that Representative Sims is able to just be openly and flagrantly racist, frankly. I mean, it's calling out saying, ageist and racist. This is an old white woman out in front of this place. He's saying that from the position of being a white man himself. What does race have to do with it? What does age have to do with it? These things are totally ancillary, and so the media has a vested interest, it seems, in not revealing the contradictions when it comes to issues that they are particularly concerned about. It's a reality that those in mainstream decision-making in media and in many places in politics favor the existing abortion consensus. So it's no surprise that they're not covering something like Sims' comments, but it is undeniable for anyone who watches the video and who engages with this story, the reality of these really disappointing, racist, ageist, and just discriminatory comments from a representative, a lawyer, who should know better.
2 quick questions before we let you go, Tom. First of all, what are the do's and don'ts for those who would like to be active in a pro-life way outside these clinics?
Well, the simple do's and don'ts are, do go out and witness for life and offer alternatives if you're interested in doing it from a place of genuinely helping women who often feel like they have no other choice but abortion. If that's why you're going out there, that's a great and wonderful thing. There's no doubt that's why the woman in Representative Sims' video is out there. And the don'ts are pretty simple. Don't do what Representative Sims did. Don't harass, don't yell, and don't berate your neighbors. Come at them with a place of love and concern for their well-being.
And finally, there seems to be a pretty hastily arranged pro-life rally coming up on Friday. How active is AUL in that, and what do you expect to happen there?
Yeah, pro-life leaders from all across the country are coming in, and there are many good people in Philadelphia who are going to be there. Americans United for Life will be there as well. Catherine Glenn Foster, our president and CEO. This is a time just to witness for life and to reassure Americans, the majority of Americans who, polling, nonpartisan polling shows the majority of Americans want there to be better alternatives than abortion, and they want there to be more restrictions on the sort of extreme sort of no-limits abortion policies that we have now. So it's just a time for Americans to come together and start to recognize that a majority exists, a majority consensus exists to protect human life, and it's time that we get to it.
Tom, we'll leave it there. Thank you, sir, very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Tom Shakely is Chief Engagement Officer at Americans United for Life. I'm Greg Columbus reporting for Radio America.